Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Berry Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours a day. The In My Opinion Show is also seen on Comcast Cable Television, Channel 17, Flint, Michigan, every Saturday at 6 p.m. and every Wednesday at 8:30. The In My Opinion Show is also seen on Comcast Detroit, Channel 68 at various times. Consult your community calendar. We have a very good show in line for our millions of viewers worldwide, but first I want to introduce my very capable and talented co-host. First we have Mr. Henry Hatter.
Hi, Ron. Denise.
Welcome, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
And then we have the diva of the show, Miss Denise Smith-Allen. Welcome.
Thank you, Ronald.
Let's talk about the takeover of Detroit, Michigan by Governor Snyder. I'm in receipt of an email from Mr. Tom Barrow. He's the president of Citizens for Detroit's Future. If you remember, he ran against Dave Bing for mayor of Detroit. And this letter is a copy of a letter sent to Detroit City Council President Charles Pugh. I'm writing to you and each of your colleagues to urge Detroit Mayor and City Council to go on the offensive and aggressively explore an authorization for the City of Detroit to initiate a Chapter 9 proceeding. It is clear that our city is not a legitimate candidate for an emergency financial manager, even as the railroad is illogically running in that direction. Bear in mind that Detroit has not failed to make a bond principal payment, has not failed to make a bond interest payment, has adequate cash to operate, and is paying its bills, resolving its nominal deficit. Nonetheless, conservative forces that are behind the pressure to impose an EFM known as the Emergency Financial Manager is the only way to get access to the city's resources. Remove you and control under EFM arrangement, you will be denuded and rendered ineffective as the people's elected representatives. As importantly, the residents will be subjected to an unaccountable czar for years, enriching conservatives off of the city assets paid for by decades by Detroit taxpayer dollars. Mr. President, I have been appointed trustee by the United States bankruptcy courts on multiple occasions and have consulted Chapter 9 experts and know how it works. I also know that there is a number of advantages to a city initiating Chapter 9 filings, a few of which I will list here below. Governor Snyder and the state's conservatives do not want you to know about any advantage, nor do they want you to seek such protection, because it will minimize their power over us. Moreover, the advice you will be given by Miller Canfield attorneys will likely be conflicted and not represent the best advice available. Remember, they were forced hired. Along with the city's current mayor and council under Chapter 9 future officials will also remain in complete control, subject to the court's oversight, and can decide when to emerge based on when they are ready. Number 3, council and the mayor will have complete authority to abrogate any contract. Yes, that means the consent agreement, memorandum of understanding, unwanted contracts, as well as embedded state operatives. But as importantly, your successor will have the same ability. With approval, you will be able to unilaterally modify bond and or long-term debt agreements, all of which can be revisited by new leadership because it will be under our control. Detroit's assets like Belle Isle and the water in the Detroit Water and Sewage Department will not be subjected to sale or transfer under Chapter 9. Last and most importantly, you and the mayor will have the time to create a long-term plan to manage our deficit without interference and in an environment conducive to running our own city. Bear in mind that the water department, which we own, has over $250 million of unrestricted cash. Should short-term borrowing become necessary, we could borrow from one of our own entities and pay ourselves the interest and principal. Mr. President, these are but a few Chapter 9 benefits, the most important of which is you control the city's destiny, not an unaccounted outsider. The media and political-driven atmosphere of inevitability is meant to break your will to fight or will to maintain control of our city. There are no benefits to an EFM, as he or she will sell off city assets to selected cronies under the appearance of objectivity. They will bust city unions, privatize government functions, and transfer city operations as they have done in other Michigan cities. In closing, not fighting an unwanted EFM will forever negatively place you in the annals of Detroit's history as presiding over a change which you and the rest of Detroit will forever regret. We urge you to lead our city so that the judgments of history does not honor you otherwise. Very truly yours, Tom Barrow, President. Well, that's a lot. Now, for those people that, and I've heard different pundits say that, well, maybe it's a good thing for Detroit, but I'm telling you right now, I don't think it is. And I don't think an emergency manager that has been in all of these other cities, all right, is warranted. Okay, I must remind you that all of these cities, I think except for one, all right, have black leadership. Now, I'm not trying to play the race card here, but out of all of the cities and municipalities in the state of Michigan, why is it that you only see black cities being taken over by emergency financial managers? Well, let's get back to Detroit. They have been trying to take over Detroit for years, okay? And the bottom line is, I don't give a damn what you've heard or who you heard it from. The bottom line behind all of this here three-card Molly shit is the water. They want the water, worth billions, billions, and billions of dollars, okay? That's their main purpose, is to get control of the water and sewage, okay? Because Detroit sells this water to, a host of municipalities around the in Michigan, okay? And also, it's my understanding that if they get control of Detroit's water, okay, people in high places have bought up all kinds of land, from Port Huron to Flint. Okay, so keep that in mind. Mr. Hatter, what do you think about this?
Well, Ron, you sure put a lot on the table. And you're exactly right about water. Water is a very precious resource. And we need it. Everybody needs it. But I'm not so sure how much we need the sewage. You can have the sewage. You can keep the sewage. But I think the water is something that is very important. And first of all, when the city of Detroit is hurting, guess who's hurting? It's the people who are governed, not the people who run the government, not the people who have the money. It's those faceless people that we don't see. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that we're undermining. And so when the governor comes out and say, well, I think I'd like to see a financial manager go to Detroit, because I don't think that Detroit is doing due process to give people the resources to a quality of life that they demand and want. Now, the people who are elected to these positions are required by law to provide these. But if they can't provide them, then they are abrogating their rights to drive government. And I'm not so sure whether Detroit has a plan, a real comprehensive plan that addresses these problems. And if they did, you have to think about, well, does the plan really address the needs of people, a rise in the quality of life? Is the plan implementable? Does the plan have the right, have they debated all of the key elements that impact the plan so that you get a 360-degree buy-in to the plan? And is the plan believable? Now, all of these, this has to be the acid test to any plan that really works. If you have not done that, you don't have a plan.
Okay.
Your plan must be able to pass muster before its critics. Not only the people that love the plan, but it has to get acquiescence from those critics. Then I'd say anybody who has a plan, if Detroit has such a plan, that's the plan that people ought to buy. But I don't think it's there yet. I think that Detroit needs to. How many years have they been in a financial distress? Maybe 5, 10? It's been a lot of time. Mm-hmm. I remember when the Black Museum went out of business because of its lack of funding.
Well, no, you're talking about Charles Wright? It's in business.
Well, it went into financial distress
sure.
there.
Absolutely.
And even with all of the support money that it had, but the people in Detroit couldn't make it work. And yet they had all of the resources. They had the power to make it work. I think that we need a new generation of leadership, and it may be all blacks. Who knows? Or it may be pluralistic.
I don't care if the leadership is black or white, you know what I mean, or Arab or Hispanic. Let's get the job done. You know what I mean? The people put you in office, all right, to govern responsibly, okay? And that's what it's all about.
Well, Ron, I think Burroughs was alluding to, chapter 9, okay? And he seemed to have spelled out some ways in which Detroit could become more viable. Now, it is up to those right now who are sitting there in leadership. At least you were talking about it too, Henry, in terms of having a plan. Now, it would behoove anybody who's in leadership to be developing some type of plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, but if they don't have one, here is something that they can draw from. And then they can become creative in terms of putting together something that will be viable so that the economic development in Detroit can move forward. Because to me, yes, it is the water, but so much hinges on economic development in that area. I mean, Detroit, Flint, there are so many similarities in terms of what could happen if you had the right things in place. You know what I mean?
And the right people at the table.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to have the right people at the table.
Absolutely.
You've got to have your critics as well as the people who support you. If you don't have the critics, you're just twisting Dixie. You've got to have people who say, "Well, I don't like this approach." Not the people who are political, but the people who really care about Detroit, who care about Detroit's people. And the governor could very well be one of those people, but who don't live in Detroit. And whose responsibility?
No, he lives in a mansion in Ann Arbor, right?
And that's okay.
On the
If
river.
you would give it to me, I would live there.
You know?
Okay? But the thing is, the quality of life, if he's concerned about the quality of life, because people in Detroit are probably as important as anybody in the state of Michigan to the governor.
But the governor's playing to his stooges, okay? And to his base. You know that as well as I do.
Here's what I know about the governor.
He'll fold in a heartbeat.
The governor does not elect.
In my opinion.
The governor does not appoint all Republicans. Republicans really adamantly thinks that he is against them. But he chooses who he wants and people who would carry out his directives to achieve certain goals. And that means that you got to have people who don't always agree with you.
Sure, you
help you put together the pieces that are important to the plan to make the plan work.
But I've never been a fan of these emergency financial managers. You know what I mean? Because everywhere they've been, okay, they were in the school system in Detroit, plundered, you know, the finances of the school. All right, they were in Pontiac, okay, plundered the resources. Ben Harbor plundered the resources. Here in Flint, you know what I mean, plundered the resources in the sense that they're hiring outside people, all right? Now, what the hell would that, and it's not that anymore, but why would they need 2 police chiefs here in Flint, paying at almost $130,000 a year? Okay?
One was under fraud.
Well, then they ought to get that money back. Okay?
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is that everywhere these emergency financial managers, or whatever you call them, you know what I mean? The name will probably be something different tomorrow, but they have plundered the resources.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not so sure that they plundered. When you see, the politics of a city or school district will not let you run the school district in an authoritative way, with a single direction, with certain outcomes. It's just not going to let you do that. They're going to weave it back and forth, tear it to pieces until you lose energy and you lose.
That's why they do it.
No, this is why. That's why you must have the financial manager. Financial manager comes in like God and puts his foot down and say, "This is how it's going to work." And
well, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But don't plunder the bank while you're doing it.
Well,
You know?
how do they plunder the bank? Explain. How do
They bring in their cronies, you know what I mean, at excessive salaries, all right? When they probably could get the same services by people that are already employed in that.
Those are the people that are the problem.
Maybe not.
You want
Maybe
your
not.
people who can get the job done, who are committed, and do what's necessary to get the job done. If it requires laying off 100 people out of 1,000, that's what you got to do. That's the hard decisions that must be made.
Yeah, but here, and I understand Ron's concern about having an emergency manager or financial manager. It doesn't matter what the name is called. The idea is government has already been set up. You already have people who are elected to do the job.
Who are not doing the job.
But they need to be still allowed to do the job, because even we had a recent election, or at least I won't say it was even an election so much as it was ballot initiatives and a referendum about that whole concept. And the people in this area said, we don't need it. Okay? So here you are supposed to be governing the people, and the people say, we don't need this, but yet we have this dictator who basically says, regardless of what you say, this is what it's going to be. And this is why you have such a breakdown in the way things are being governed.
Well, see, I'm a conservative constitutionalist. I believe the law says that this is how this system of government works. You must not operate with a deficit budget.
Well,
Okay.
I think we're not disagreeing with that.
Okay, yeah, we got that.
Now, do you know that this is what's happening to cities and school districts? That's why they're being taken over.
But is there anything in the Constitution that talks about having an emergency manager, emergency financial manager? These things were just recently created.
Yeah, what's
they
in the
have to be created to protect the interests of people.
Well, what's in the Constitution? Okay,
But the people say they don't want it.
The people don't have a right. What people
Sure
say
they
that
do.
we don't have. Unless you submit it to a referendum, segments of the people, by their philosophies, don't have the right to say no.
Well, that's the reason why.
Only a referendum can tell you that.
Yeah, well, if the referendum says they don't want it and then they still do it anyway, then what does that mean?
I don't know whether the people have said they didn't want it.
Well, let's just take this for instance. Okay,
Flint, they did.
recently,
Well, Flint is only one entity.
the voters in
all
Michigan
the
said
people.
that they didn't want Proposition 4, right? Okay, they voted it down. What did this?
No, they didn't want it in.
What did this guy? What did this?
installed in the Constitution?
What did this guy up in Lansing do? But turn around and brought some more bullshit up. You know what I mean? And put a stop to a referendum so that the referendum couldn't be initiated to challenge that.
I beg you to differ, my friend. That proposition said that the people did not want that incorporated in the Constitution. Had they left it out of the Constitution, it might have passed favorably. But they didn't want constitutional changes of this nature.
Well,
That's why all of those propositions
well,
fail.
powers in Lansing made damn sure it won't work. Even
Yeah.
if they brought
And
it
the people
to the
were
table.
right not to change the Constitution.
You
And, delving into the Constitution, just like this thing with the right to work, putting that into the Constitution, you create a privileged class. Everybody else would be subjugated to this privileged class whose rights and incomes and all of the other stuff are protected by the Constitution. We want to be cautious how we open and close the Constitution. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, we do. There's nothing to be sorry about, but you've got to, you've got to watch, because there are those out there that want to change. If they had their way, they'd be changing things in the Constitution every year. You know what I mean? And that can't be allowed to happen.
They have amendments, and the amendments have been around forever. Okay, and some of them are very apropos and worked to perfect the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see anything wrong if it's necessary to have some amendments.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong, but if it benefits all of the people,
Exactly.
not just a segment of the people. You can't put rights out there for only perhaps our operators out here, not benefit us or the rest of the community. You can't do that in the Constitution. That is
For the people, by the people.
for the people and by the people.
Right.
Wow.
Well, so all in all, I agree with Governor Snyder. If he appointed me the emergency manager, I know I would be assassinated in 2 or 3 days.
No, they wouldn't.
Because I would clean
Because
up
I'd be your
Detroit.
bodyguard, buddy. You know what I mean? That's
I would want to see the people's
my baseball
interests
bats.
protected. I want to
Of
see
course.
the people's interests. The people are vulnerable to governments. Governments can be oppressive.
Yeah.
And they are.
Yes.
And they can look away from conditions. They don't see the conditions of suffering that many people do see. And
Well, I think what's probably one of the key factors in the situation that you're talking about is being able to address it with the people.
Yes.
Having some kind
Critics
of forums
and
and things like that to educate the
Referendums.
people
Yes.
to say, okay, we only have $100 in the bank. And you want to spend $200, so certain things are not going to be bought. So this is how we're going to do this. I mean,
I
if
agree.
you put that kind of information out to the public so they understand what's going on, I think you would have a more informed electorate.
And I agree with that 100%. Once the people decide, that's the plurality of the people decide that this is the way we want to go, I'm with that. But if you have a minority of people out here deciding what the outcome of any event that affects us all, I'm against it.
Well, but you have this elitist group of people right now, the Congress people and all the rest of them that are making decisions. And
But that's because we appoint them, we elect them for that purpose. And it's like a balloon that you blow up and direct toward that wall, and it just zigzags all over the place, so you can never completely track it. But you can there's still the reins for the next election cycle.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Anything more?
I have nothing else to say about that.
Yes,
topic.
I think that people give Governor Snyder a bad rap, and I know when you make tough decisions, nobody's going to be in your corner. You have to make them though.
Well,
And
there's
I
nothing
think
wrong.
The same thing with our president. When you make those tough decisions, the people rise up and don't like it, and it get passed by what is perceived to be the plurality of the people, then we have nothing else to say about it but to live with it.
To live with it.
There's nothing wrong with making hard decisions, all right? But I think when you make these hard decisions, you should have all available facts, all
Yes.
right?
I agree.
All available
Well, that's
facts.
what I was saying before about it not only having the facts, but presenting the facts. Because so much of this stuff, a lot of times people are under the impression that we're not getting it all. We're not getting the whole truth. Okay?
That's why you have to have everybody at the table.
Right.
People.
Exactly. Well, let's change gears here. What is your thoughts on women in the military? Should they be on the front line, or should they not? Okay. Now, if I was in the military and I was in the war zone and my ass depended on, on a female, hey, look, come on, get in this foxhole, let's kill up some folks. All right? That's my, and I think a woman is just as qualified, all right, as a man. They may not have the, as they say, the upper body strength, but there's other attributes that would probably kick in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now, why there's such a controversy, I don't know. If it was for me, it was up to me, women would have been on the front lines, long time ago. And as quiet as kept, they have been all the way from the Revolutionary War. All right.
Right.
So, you being the resident female, DSA, what do you think?
Okay, well, I'll speak not just because I'm a resident female, but I think that it's important to realize that, change is a challenge for a lot of people. And I think about the police department. I think about where I work. These were male-dominated positions, okay? And they had their reason. Whether it was sexist, racist, whatever it was, there were reasons that these things took place. But if you're talking about physical strength, if you're talking about mental ability, there are tests, there are things that people have to go through in order to qualify.
Sure.
Okay? And once they've qualified, when they were able to bring women into the military, they had to go through boot camp. They had to go through training.
Absolutely.
They had to go through these things. And a lot of these women have aspired to go beyond a private first class. They have gone on and taken on some very high-ranking positions in the military, in all the branches. So, what's the problem with the front line?
I don't see it.
I don't see it. I don't see it. If this woman has been trained to use artillery, okay, and she is capable of holding that rifle or whatever it is that she has, okay, can detonate some bombs and all the rest of that stuff. If you're in a war, you need every able-bodied individual to participate.
Exactly.
And if they've been trained to do it, then why not?
I agree.
This is, unfortunately, we got to bring this segment to a close, but we will revisit this again. I want to thank our technical staff as well as my co-hosts, Mr. Denise Smith-Allen and Mr. Henry Hatter.
Thank you, Ron.
And our millions of viewers worldwide. Until next time, this is Ronald Barry Robinson and friends saying, stay focused.